The distant view, a brief battle off Pearl Harbor, and a severe bombing of Pearl Harbor by enemy planes, undoubtedly Japanese.
I was up in the compartment reading a comic book, and that's when I realized we were under attack.
Buddy, this is the real McCoy. It's the goddamn Japs.
The unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan, a state of war, has existed.
Can you envision 1 million pounds of TNT blowing up?
I could see the pilot and the co-pilot, and they were laughing for all they were worth.
It was horrifying.
The attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, remains one of the most defining moments in modern history. It was a quiet Sunday morning, a day of rest for the sailors and soldiers stationed in Paradise. But in the span of just 2 hours, the tranquility was shattered, and the course of World War II was irrevocably altered, awakening a sleeping giant to the grim realities of a world at war. The path to war was paved with Japan's imperial ambitions in China. Seeking resources, Japan's military aggression was met with increasing American economic pressure. The final blow was a total embargo on oil in 1941, cutting off over 80% of Japan's supply. This act forced a stark choice upon Japan's leaders: concede their ambitions, or seize the resources they needed by force. They chose war. The architect of the attack was Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. A brilliant strategist who had studied at Harvard, Yamamoto understood America's industrial might. Knowing a long war was unwinnable, he devised an audacious gamble: a massive, preemptive strike to annihilate the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. He hoped this devastating blow would cripple American morale and buy Japan time to secure its new empire. In the months prior, American intelligence held crucial pieces of the puzzle. U.S. cryptanalysts codenamed Magic had broken Japan's diplomatic cipher and knew war was imminent. They even intercepted a bomb plot message requesting a detailed grid of warships in Pearl Harbor. Yet this critical warning was lost. The consensus in Washington was that any attack would come in Southeast Asia. Pearl Harbor was considered too improbable. On the morning of December 7th, 2 final warnings went unheeded. Just after 6:45 a.m., the destroyer USS Ward sank a Japanese midget submarine trying to enter the harbor. The report was delayed. Minutes later, a new radar station detected a massive aircraft formation. The duty officer, expecting American B-17S, tragically dismissed it. Don't worry about it. The final line of defense had failed. At 7:48 a.m., the first of 183 planes descended upon the island. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida radioed the triumphant code, "Tora! Tora! Tora!" signaling complete surprise. The primary targets were the 8 American battleships moored in Battleship Row. Specially modified torpedoes slammed into their hulls while armor-piercing bombs rained down from above. The devastation was swift. The USS Oklahoma was struck by multiple torpedoes and rolled over in minutes, trapping over 400 crew inside. The most catastrophic loss was the USS Arizona. At 8:10 a.m., a 760-pound bomb detonated its forward munitions magazine. The explosion was cataclysmic, instantly killing 1,177 sailors and Marines, entombing them within the mighty battleship. As Battleship Row burned, a second wave of 171 Japanese planes arrived around 8:50 a.m. Their mission was to finish off any remaining ships and, crucially, to obliterate American air power on the island. They systematically strafed and bombed the airfields at Hickam, Wheeler, and Bellows, destroying neatly parked American aircraft wingtip to wingtip on the tarmac. This ensured there would be no effective aerial counterattack. By 9:45 a.m. the scene was apocalyptic. 2,403 Americans were killed and 1,178 wounded. 18 ships were sunk or damaged, but it was a tactical victory with a massive strategic flaw. The attackers missed the base's vital oil storage, repair yards, and most importantly, the Pacific Fleet's 3 aircraft carriers, all at sea. These assets would allow America to strike back far sooner than Japan anticipated. Amidst the chaos, heroes emerged. On the USS West Virginia, mess attendant Doris Miller, barred from combat roles, manned a .50 caliber anti-aircraft gun he'd never been trained on. becoming one of the first heroes of the war. The next day, a resolute President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed a stunned nation. He declared December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. Yamamoto's gamble had failed. He had hoped to shatter American resolve, but instead, he had unified it. The attack on Pearl Harbor extinguished American isolationism, replacing it with a firestorm of righteous fury. The sleeping giant was awake and filled with a terrible resolve. In the wake of the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, a shattered but resolute America looked to its leader. On December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt stood before Congress and delivered one of the most powerful speeches in American history, branding December 7th a date which will live in infamy. He asked for a declaration of war, and Congress responded almost unanimously. The vote galvanized a nation, transforming shock and grief into a powerful, unified purpose. The rallying cry, "Remember Pearl Harbor," echoed from coast to coast. An unprecedented wave of patriotism swept the country. Recruitment offices were flooded with volunteers, and the nation's industrial might, the arsenal of democracy, pivoted to wartime production with breathtaking speed. Automobile plants began churning out tanks and planes, and shipyards operated around the clock. America was now fully committed, not just to retaliation, but to a global conflict that would demand immense sacrifice on both the battlefield and the home front. While America mobilized, Japan launched a stunningly effective offensive across the Pacific. Their forces, battle-hardened and meticulously planned, seemed unstoppable. They launched simultaneous invasions, overwhelming Allied defenses in Malaya, Hong Kong, and the Dutch East Indies. In the Philippines, American and Filipino forces under General Douglas MacArthur were forced into a desperate retreat, culminating in the fall of the islands and the infamous Bataan Death March. By mid-1942, Japan's rising sun flag flew over a vast empire, stretching from the borders of India to the Central Pacific. America desperately needed a victory, a sign that Japan was not invincible. The answer was one of the most audacious operations of the war, the Doolittle Raid. Led by the charismatic Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle, 16 B-25 medium bombers were launched from the aircraft carrier USS Hornet, a feat for which they were never designed. Their one-way mission was to strike the heart of the Japanese Empire, Tokyo. While the physical damage was minimal, the psychological impact was immense. It was a tremendous morale boost for the American public, and a profound shock to Japan's leadership, who now realized their home islands were vulnerable. The raid forced a fatal strategic error. To prevent another attack and eliminate the U.S. fleet, Japan planned a decisive battle at Midway Atoll. But American intelligence had a crucial advantage. U.S. codebreakers at Station Hypo, led by Joseph Rochefort, had partially broken the Japanese naval code. In a brilliant stroke of counterintelligence, they confirmed Midway as the target. Armed with this knowledge, Admiral Chester Nimitz set a trap. As the Japanese fleet approached, U.S. dive bombers caught their carriers at their most vulnerable moment. In a matter of minutes, 4 of Japan's finest aircraft carriers were turned into blazing wrecks. The Battle of Midway was a stunning, decisive victory that turned the tide of the war in the Pacific. With the initiative seized, the U.S. began its long, arduous offensive, adopting a strategy known as island hopping. The plan was to bypass and isolate heavily fortified Japanese garrisons, instead capturing strategically vital islands to build air bases for the next leap toward Japan. The first major test came at Guadalcanal, a brutal 6-month campaign of attrition fought in unforgiving jungle terrain. Later, the assault on Tarawa Atoll provided a bloody lesson in the cost of amphibious warfare. Heavy marine casualties caused by landing craft getting caught on coral reefs highlighted the brutal reality of the fight ahead. Each island was a fortress, and victory would be measured 1 yard of blood-soaked sand at a time. As 1945 dawned, the Allies closed in on the Japanese home islands. The path led through 2 of the most ferociously defended islands of the war. First was Iwo Jima, a desolate volcanic rock whose strategic value was immense. Its airfields were vital for American B-29 bombers, providing a base for fighter escorts and an emergency landing strip for damaged planes returning from Japan. The Japanese commander, General Tadamichi Kurabayashi, had turned the island into a fortress of 11 miles of interconnected tunnels, bunkers, and caves. He forbade the suicidal banzai charges of previous battles, ordering his 21,000 defenders to fight to the last man from their subterranean positions. For 36 days, U.S. Marines fought a hellish battle of attrition against a largely unseen enemy. In this brutal fight, Admiral Chester Nimitz would later write, "Uncommon valor was a common virtue." The battle cost nearly 7,000 American lives, but it produced one of the war's most enduring images, the flag raising on Mount Suribachi. This powerful symbol of sacrifice and resolve galvanized the American home front, becoming a beacon of hope in the war's grim final chapter. Next came Okinawa, the final major battle of the Pacific War. Codenamed Operation Iceberg, it was the largest amphibious assault of the theater, and a horrifying dress rehearsal for the planned invasion of Japan itself. The fighting was even more savage than Iwo Jima. Offshore, the U.S. Navy endured the full, terrifying fury of the kamikaze. These divine wind suicide attacks, flown by pilots on one-way missions, sank 36 ships and damaged hundreds more, inflicting terror and devastation. On the ground, American forces faced fanatical resistance, while the island's civilian population was caught in a catastrophic crossfire. The battle for Okinawa became the bloodiest in the Pacific. Over 12,500 American dead, 110,000 Japanese soldiers killed, and a staggering 150,000 Okinawan civilians perished, many forced into combat or coerced into mass suicide by the Japanese military. The horrific casualties on Okinawa gave American war planners a terrifying glimpse of what an invasion of the Japanese mainland, codenamed Operation Downfall, would entail. Projections estimated over 1 million American casualties and many millions more Japanese. Faced with this ghastly arithmetic, President Harry S. Truman, who had taken office after Roosevelt's death, was presented with a terrible alternative. For years, a top-secret program, the Manhattan Project, had been working to harness the power of the atom. On July 16, 1945, in the New Mexico desert, the Trinity test confirmed the success of their work, unleashing a power never before seen on Earth. Following the test, the Allies issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's unconditional surrender. When Japan's leadership offered only silence, Truman made his fateful decision. The ultimate weapon was ready. On the morning of August 6, the B-29 bomber Enola Gay flew over its target. At 8:15 a.m. it released a single bomb, Little Boy, over the city of Hiroshima. The resulting blast and firestorm instantly killed an estimated 80,000 people, vaporizing the city center. Yet even after this unprecedented destruction, Japan's War Council remained deadlocked. Then, on August 8th, the Soviet Union declared war, invading Manchuria. The next day, August 9th, a second B-29, Boxcar, dropped Fat Man on the city of Nagasaki, killing another 40,000. In the months that followed, tens of thousands more would die from radiation sickness. The twin shocks of the atomic bombs and the Soviet invasion finally broke the stalemate. In an unprecedented move, Emperor Hirohito intervened. On August 15th, the Japanese people heard their emperor's voice for the first time in the Jewel Voice broadcast, announcing the nation's surrender. The war officially ended on September 2, 1945, in a formal ceremony aboard the battleship USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. General Douglas MacArthur accepted the surrender, declaring, "Let us pray that peace be now restored to the world." The Pacific War, ignited in the fires of Pearl Harbor, was over. It remains one of the most brutal conflicts in human history, a testament to the immense destructive power of total war. The surprise attack had awakened a sleeping giant, unleashing the full industrial and military might of the United States. Today, the memorials at Pearl Harbor and across the Pacific stand as solemn reminders. They honor the fallen and teach a vital lesson for all future generations, a lesson about vigilance, preparedness, and the incalculable human cost of war. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like and subscribe for more history content.